Hey, Guy Haberman here with breaking news. Pete Carroll is out as the head coach of the Seattle Seahawks. He's going to take an advisory role with Seattle. A very interesting job that opens up in the league. A Tito's Toast to Pete. We're brought to you by Tito's Handmade Vodka, crafted to be savored responsibly. Also, butcherbox.com/ham, where you can get free chicken, free salmon, or free ground beef for a year. And Game Time, the app. Use the promo code HAM for $20 off, lowest price guaranteed. Tito's Toast to Pete. Hell of a run. Incredible, really. 14 years in Seattle, a winning percentage of over 60%, almost 61%. Won a championship, almost won a second championship. Really, the way he lost the second championship is definitely part of the story. But the fact that he won the first one was enough. When you take that, add it to the incredible run he had at USC, I think the big part of Pete's story is that he had failed. He'd been bottom of the barrel. He was not USC's first, second, third, fourth. He was like their eighth choice at SC. And then he had incredible success, brought USC back. Hell, took USC to a level that everyone had kind of imagined they were, but maybe they never actually reached. And he made those dreams a reality. Then he goes to Seattle, and people go, all right, this again. He'd already failed in the NFL. This guy running up and down the sidelines, chomping on his gum. This is not going to work with professionals. And not only did it work with professionals, he consistently had one of the toughest, most motivated teams in the league. And he took a franchise that had no dreams of being SC. They just wanted to be semi-relevant, and he made them bullies. He made them bullies. He took a fan base that didn't care and made them one of the best home field advantages in the NFL. And then with him, he brought, in his way, the 49ers peaking around the same time with Jim Harbaugh over a shorter peak for sure. But that created one of the best rivalries in the league, definitely in the NFC, and created a huge rivalry in the NFC West. Those two teams, because they were both big-time physical bullies. The difference was that Pete kept it going, that Pete finished the job and won a championship, that Pete, despite a lot of adversity, people questioning, players questioning, rosters changing, he maintained competitiveness. Now, at the end, he was not maintaining, unfortunately for them, championship level competitiveness. You knew that Seattle would be right in the mix. If you played them, it wasn't going to be easy. That you'd look up and they'd be fighting for a playoff spot. But they haven't really been a championship contender for a few years. Once they lost the elite version of Russell Wilson, they were no longer a major threat to the 49ers. They had sunk to third by a wide margin in the NFC West. I know that they went 9-8 this year, and the Rams went 10-7. But organizationally, in terms of where they are, they were not that close. In large part because their defense had stopped being the dominant defense, and they'd lost their quarterback. So it becomes a really interesting job. If you told me Jim Harbaugh stepped into that job and even if he had Geno Smith, what do I think? I think they're in the playoffs next year. But it's probably unlikely. I would think that Harbaugh is in the mix for that job. Seattle had a front row seat to what it looked like, how quickly it ended with Jim. They're looking for stability, something long-term. John Schneider worked arm in arm with Pete Carroll. At the end of the day, Pete was the one who had the power from the beginning. And so that dynamic always remains to some degree. So John Schneider's not going to get his first clean slate and immediately go hire some guy that's going to be in a power struggle with him. Mike Sando's got a good feel for things around the whole league, definitely coaching, quarterbacking, all that stuff. But certainly with Seattle, he's got a good finger on the pulse. And he suggested both Dan Quinn and Mike McCarthy. Dan Quinn's been there, had success. Front office knows him. People feel like he's bound to be a head coach. Again, he's had some opportunities. He's been close. His Dallas defense has been excellent. And Mike McCarthy's interesting, as Sando writes, just something to keep in mind if certain things unfold. Excuse me. Managing my voice right now. And those certain things being McCarthy getting fired, them losing to Green Bay this weekend, McCarthy being out. Who knows? I did a Harbaugh video. I don't think they're going to take Harbaugh in Dallas, but maybe somebody who's available makes them incentivized to move on from McCarthy. I think they need to. And so he said McCarthy maybe is an option in Seattle. Seattle's offense would get better with McCarthy. Seattle's defense would get better with Dan Quinn. So those two guys together would be great. But I don't think that's going to happen. Although I guess in theory it could, but that seems pretty unlikely. So even though they get better with either one of those guys, both of those guys are pitches that the Niners can already hit. Dan Quinn's very good at what he does, but Kyle Shanahan has proven that he can go toe to toe with Dan Quinn, knows how to beat him, knows what to do, that the familiarity they have with one another slants in Shanahan's favor. Mike McCarthy is also a pitch that he knows how to hit. McCarthy might get Seattle to the playoffs next year if he were to become their coach. But I don't think either one of those guys are changing the balance of power in the NFC West. They would, I think, make you have to feel Seattle a little more, specifically if you're the Niners. We talk about the Niners a lot. So from a Niners perspective, Seattle was looking like, for the next few years at least, I'm not going to say you're going to chalk up 2 wins because you always have a weird game with them, but you'd be pretty in control with them. That if you were to lose to them, it'd be a little fluky. And I think McCarthy would elevate them a little bit, but still, they would still be third in this division. I don't believe they would be a Super Bowl contender. They have a very talented roster. They've had very talented rosters on offense and defense. This would be a very talented offensive roster, but they got to get that defense figured out. That's ultimately what has given Dallas a shot. And that's what would ultimately give Seattle a shot. So either one of those guys, I think, would be fine. I think it'd be a solid hire, but I don't think it would threaten the balance of power in the NFC. What would threaten the balance of power in the NFC is if they went bigger. If they went, I hate to keep bringing up Jim, but if they went Jim, or if Dallas fired McCarthy and they went Jim, something like that. It's interesting. You would have thought a few years ago, given the proliferation of the Shanahan guys and then, McVay guys become interesting. You wondered, like in hindsight, would Shane Waldron, who left the Rams to become the offensive coordinator of the Seahawks, was he about to be set up to be Pete's successor? But I don't know whether they like him or not, but it doesn't feel like that's the move. I don't think it should be the move, but he did not put himself in a position to make that the move. So I think it's an attractive job. A little bit of a turnover at the top, but same ownership, family, and recent history of stability, which Pete gets and John Schneider get a ton of the credit for. Good market, right? Supportive fan base, good place to be, cool town, all of that makes Seattle pretty attractive. So, I think what'll dictate the candidate pool there is, do they have a type? And from reading this Mike Sando tweet, it definitely feels like they've got a type of established guy, maybe established guy they know. Now, maybe that's not their type, and that's just his initial list, but he had a good feel for this job. He suggested it could come open, as other people did, and that's something to watch for right there.